They found a Bigfoot nest, but something else was inside. You've heard the legends. Massive footprints, eerie howls deep in the forest, and the whispers of Bigfoot sightings. But what happens when a team of researchers actually finds a nest? And what if Bigfoot wasn't the worst thing living inside it? Don't blink, because something ancient, something wrong, just woke up. We were supposed to be documenting a legend, something harmless, honestly, a curiosity. Our expedition into the Olympic National Forest was planned as a semi-serious cryptid investigation, mainly content for our channel, myth or madness. I didn't expect real results. Hell, I was already planning the clickbait thumbnails in my head. There were 5 of us. Me, Ethan Chambers, documentary filmmaker, slight skeptic, and unfortunately, the only one who made it out. Then there was Ava Martinez, cryptozoologist and true believer. She could tell you every reported sighting of Bigfoot west of the Rockies like a walking conspiracy board. Nate and Liz were the camera crew, dating, bickering constantly, but solid. And our guide, Cal Becker, was an ex-park ranger with a military past and eyes that didn't blink enough. We hiked in about 10 miles from the nearest ranger station. Notras, just dense green, the sound of buzzing insects, and trees older than anyone alive. It didn't take long for the forest to feel different, quiet, like something was watching us, sizing us up. Not an animal, something smarter. The first sign came at dusk. Cal froze mid-step and motioned for silence. He pointed ahead, his voice barely above a breath. You smell that. The air had gone sour, like rotting meat and wet moss left in a sealed room for weeks. Even Ava gagged. We moved cautiously toward the source, boots crunching on dead leaves and broken branches. Then we found it. A clearing, perfectly round. No birds, no insects, just silence. At the center was what looked like a massive nest made from twisted branches, layers of fur and bones. Not deer bones either. Some were too long, too thin. Others had bite marks, deep punctures, spaced too far apart to be a bear or cougar. Ava whispered, "It's real. It's really real." Cal grunted, "I've seen bear dens. This ain't that." We documented everything. Camera footage, notes, measurements. Liz stayed back at camp to back up the files while the rest of us scouted nearby. That was the first mistake. We found 3 more nests, smaller, decaying, as if something had moved on. At one of them, Nate found a tuft of fur stuck in the bark of a pine tree. It was oily, jet black, and reeked. When Cal shined his flashlight on it, the beam shimmered like the strands were coated in something iridescent. Ava took a sample in a tube. She was shaking. That night, everything fell apart. Back at camp, Liz was pale. She said she'd heard movement in the trees, soft at first, then heavy, and a low whistle, like someone trying to mimic a bird call, but failing badly. Nate tried to brush it off as wind. This place echoes weird. Cal didn't say anything, just checked his rifle and sat with his back to the fire. We should have left right then. Sometime past midnight, the whistling returned. But this time it wasn't distant. It circled the camp. 3 notes. Always the same. Long, short, long. Ava and I sat frozen in our tents, staring at each other through mesh windows. Liz had started crying. Nate unzipped his tent, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Don't," Cal barked. But it was too late. The second Nate stepped out, the light went out. Not flickered, went dead. And we heard him scream. Not just scream, change. His voice went from anger to panic to something that wasn't even human. Like it had been hijacked mid-shout and twisted into a gurgle. We bolted out. Cal fired into the dark. The muzzle flashes painting brief horrors. I saw something, just for a second. Tall. Wrong. It had Nate by the arms, its limbs too long, bending backward, its face, if that was a face, split open like vertical jaws. Something slid from it, like veins or roots or tendrils, and Nate went silent. We ran. We didn't even try to pack. Just grabbed what we could and ran into the woods like children fleeing a nightmare. Only 4 of us now. We huddled in another nest we stumbled into, half collapsed and smelling of age and filth. Ava was muttering, repeating lines from some native folklore she'd memorized. She said this wasn't Bigfoot. It was something older, Something the tribes wouldn't even name aloud. A mimic, she said. A forest trickster. It takes the shape of what you expect to see. What the hell does that mean? I asked, my voice breaking. It means if we're looking for Bigfoot, that's what it'll wear. Cal refused to sleep. I caught him smearing ash around the nest's opening, whispering something under his breath. I asked what he was doing. Old Ranger trick, he said. Camouflage our scent. Won't fool it for long, but might buy us time. That night, we heard Liz calling for help. But she'd been with us, sleeping, or so we thought. She was gone, and the voice outside wasn't quite hers. It sounded like Liz if someone had heard her once and was trying to imitate the pitch, the rhythm, like a bad recording. Then came the sound of something dragging its limbs against bark. The whistling followed. 3 notes. Long, short, long. The dawn never really came. The forest just turned from pitch black to a pale gray mist, like light was trying, but couldn't quite break through. We emerged from the collapsed nest exhausted, hollow-eyed, and shivering. Liz was still missing, or gone, or whatever that thing had done to her. Ava clutched the tube of fur like a lifeline. Her lips were cracked from whispering through the night. She said its name is whispered only by the dying, she muttered. What? I asked. The mimic spirit. The tribes knew of it. They didn't say it out loud, because to speak it is to draw it near. Cal spat to the side. Well, too late for that. We pressed deeper into the forest, tried to circle back toward the original clearing. If we could just find our bearings, or signal someone, we could escape. That was the plan. But the woods had other ideas. Trees that weren't there before stood in our way. A dry creek we'd crossed the day before was now brimming with black, sluggish water. Time wasn't moving right. Direction didn't matter anymore. That's when we found the nest again. Only now it had changed. The entrance was wider. The fur and bones that made its walls had been rearranged, no longer random but shaped. Symbols, circles, spirals, arrows. Some bones had been sharpened. The scent was worse, coppery alive. And in the center, something new had been added. A rib cage, human-sized, and inside it, Nate's camera, still recording. We gathered around it, afraid to touch it. But Cal did. He pulled the memory card and plugged it into Ava's tablet. The video file was named with a timestamp from hours ago. It started shaky, aimed at the trees. Then it focused on us. We watched in silence as the footage showed all 4 of us sleeping in the nest last night. But the camera wasn't in Nate's hands. It was being held by something crouching low, creeping around the edges, recording us while we slept. Then it panned to Liz. Her eyes were open, but she didn't blink. And then she sat up, jerky, mechanical, and stared directly into the lens. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out, only static, until one single phrase cut through. It likes your voice, Ethan. The screen went black. Ava dropped the tablet and staggered back. We didn't speak much after that. Cal insisted we keep moving. We don't rest again. We don't split up. And we sure as hell don't answer if anyone calls our name. The mimic was toying with us now. It wasn't hunting us out of hunger. It was studying, playing, and it had learned how to use our voices. That afternoon, the forest mimicked us. We heard ourselves. Snippets. Sentences. Ava arguing with Nate. Cal yelling orders. My laugh. All echoed from between the trees, like ghosts caught in a loop. At one point, I turned, swore I saw myself between the branches. Same jacket. Same camera bag. But the face wasn't mine. It was wearing something that looked like skin, but it didn't quite fit. Too tight in places. Loose in others. And the smile was carved wide, as if it had forgotten how teeth were supposed to sit. I ran. We stopped a massive deadfall, a giant cedar that had split and fallen decades ago. Its hollow base gave us temporary shelter. Ava collapsed inside, covering her ears, rocking. She's not coming back, she whispered. Liz is gone, Ethan. You saw it. It didn't just copy her, it emptied her. Cal paced at the entrance like a caged animal. It's choosing, picking us off slow. I sat beside Ava, unsure of what to say. I wanted to believe we could make it out, but I could feel it now too. We weren't on the forest floor anymore. We were inside something, digested by the woods, digested by it. That night, we didn't build a fire, didn't eat, just sat in silence, until Ava started singing. Softly, A lullaby I didn't recognize. Something rhythmic and old. Cal and I stared. I didn't. I began, but then I saw her lips weren't moving. The sound was outside. The mimic had learned to sing. It stepped into view. Not fully, just enough to be seen between trunks. It looked like Ava. Same curls. Same green jacket. Same little scar on her cheek. But her eyes, they were pure black. Like oil had filled them. And her arms were too long. The fingers twitched independently, like spiders made of flesh. It tilted its head and mimicked Ava's voice again. I don't want to run anymore. Let's stay. We're part of it now. Then it opened its mouth, far too wide, and we heard Liz's scream emerge from it. Layered, twisting, dozens of voices, all mangled, stitched together like a haunted choir. Cal opened fire. The creature disappeared behind the trees in a blink, the bullets hitting nothing. We didn't sleep. By morning, Ava was gone. No blood. No straged. Just gone. And on the inside wall of the hollow tree, smeared in what looked like sap or blood or both, were the words, "You call me." They thought the forest had secrets, buried legends, and cryptid myths. But now it's clear, the woods don't just keep secrets, they feed on them. Ava is gone. The mimic is evolving. And I've started hearing my own voice whisper things I never said. I didn't speak for hours after Ava vanished. Cal and I trudged in silence, boots sinking into damp moss that squelched like rotten meat. The air stank of mold and iron, and the fog never lifted. It felt like we were walking underwater, time thick, dragging. And the woods had gone quiet. Too quiet. No birds. No insects. Not even wind. Just our breath and the heavy echo of paranoia rattling in our skulls. Then came the rustling. At first soft, gentle, a rabbit maybe. Then more deliberate, branches bending, leaves shifting, something matching our pace just out of sight. We didn't run. That's what it wanted. Instead, Cal held up a hand and pointed to an outcropping of granite boulders ahead. A natural formation shaped like a crown, jagged teeth reaching skyward. Shelter, maybe, or at least high ground. But as we climbed, we found something else, a jacket. Ava's green jacket, hung on a branch like it had been displayed. No blood, no tears, just her jacket, zipped up and buttoned neatly, and tucked in the pocket a piece of paper. I unfolded it. Only 3 words written in shaky pen. Don't trust Cal. I didn't say anything. Not right away. We settled near the rocks, still not speaking. Cal pulled out his flask, hands trembling slightly as he downed a swig. His beard was speckled with grain now. Overnight, like the stress, aged him a decade. We're not going to make it. Are we? He said finally. Wie nicht, elite. He nodded like he believed it, but I saw his hand slide subtly to his belt where the hunting knife rested. Was it the forest getting to me? Or Ava's note? Because now, every glance from Cal felt too long. Every pause in his sentence felt like calculation. I tried to ignore it, until night fell. That evening, the mimic returned. It didn't walk this time. It crawled upside down across the stone wall like a spider, limbs clicking, joints rotating the wrong way. Its face kept shifting, Liz, Ava, my own face, but none of them stayed. It was hunting for the one that feared itself most. Cal stood, knife drawn. Come on, freak, show me your real face. It stopped. Its mouth opened, and his voice came out. You never left the ward. You died with the others. You're still down there, screaming. Then it dropped from the rocks and vanished into the woods. Cal didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. In the flickering light of the dying fire, I saw him muttering to himself, over and over. Then something strange. He pulled out a second notebook, one I hadn't seen before. Pages filled with drawings, symbols, spirals, that same rib cage shaped from a nest. Human bones labeled. It was a journal, his journal, of the mimic. He'd known. I lunged. We wrestled. He cursed, screamed, begged. Listen, Ethan, I didn't know it would follow us. I thought it was contained. My fist connected with his jaw. He went down hard, hitting his head against the stone. Blood pooled beneath his ear. He didn't move. For a moment, I thought he was dead. But he stirred, moaned, just unconscious. I took the notebook and ran. I didn't care about direction anymore. I just wanted away. but the forest wouldn't allow it. The trees twisted behind me. The ground pulsed beneath my feet, as if breathing. I passed the same tree 3 times, one with a symbol carved deep into its bark, a spiral surrounded by jagged teeth. And then I heard it, singing, Ava's lullaby. Only this time, there was a chorus. More voices. Hundreds. Some high, some cracked and dry, others gurgling through wet throats. They were singing to me, calling me home. I tripped, fell face first into a clearing. The fog thinned, the trees parted, and before me stood a new nest, much larger, built around a shattered observation tower, half metal, half bone. And at the very top, nailed like a crucifix, was a figure. Cal, alive, eyes wide, mouth sewn shut, but he was screaming inside. The mimic's nest wasn't just a lair, it was a shrine, a grotesque monument built from bones and lies. Now Cal strung up like a scarecrow, and I'm about to uncover a truth that should have died with the forest itself. But something is still moving, and it knows my name. I couldn't breathe. Cal hung high above, lashed to the spire of the broken tower like some ancient sacrifice. The vines wrapped around his arms weren't made of plant. They pulsed. Like muscle. Like veins. His mouth was stitched shut with something fibrous and dark. Not wire. Not twine. Hair. Human hair. And his eyes, they didn't blink. Just stared down at me, pleading, empty. A part of me wanted to run, but I knew I was too far gone for that. The forest wouldn't let me go. Not now. Not after what I'd seen. Not with what I'd heard crawling beneath the bark of every tree. So I stepped into the nest. The moment my foot touched the clearing's edge, the ground let out a deep, wet sigh. The bones that formed the nest's outer wall shifted, hundreds of them, rattling in a language older than sound. Rib cages fused into arches, skulls aligned like steps. Someone had built this, but not for shelter. For worship. I passed the remains of equipment, trail cams, notebooks, old rucksacks, torn open and rotting. All of it arranged like trophies. I even saw the crushed casing of Ava's camcorder, warped with heat and claw marks. Her name was carved into the plastic. It wasn't a nest. It was a graveyard, and it was growing. I climbed the spiral path of bones leading to the tower's base. Each step brought new horrors. Child-sized femurs, skulls with too many teeth, vertebrae that stretched far too long to be human. And at the base of the tower, a mirror, cracked, ancient, and framed in twisted antlers. I looked into it, and a reflection smiled. It wasn't me. It wore my face, but not my eyes. Its gaze was hollow, too wide, lips stretched, and in its arms a baby. Small, hairless, shivering. I blinked, and it was gone. But the sound remained. The infant's cry. High, inhuman, like static through a scream, coming from above. I climbed the tower. Each rung creaked, slick with moss, and something else, thick, sticky, sweet-smelling. Blood, or something older. Halfway up, the metal warped beneath my feet. I nearly fell, catching myself on a jutting pipe wrapped in what looked like stretched skin. A voice whispered near my ear. You're the last one now. Spoon. No one there. Another voice. Ava. It's inside you, Ethan. Then Cal's voice. But not from his mouth. From inside the tower. He was never real, Ethan. You made him up after the ward fire. The mimic was using their memories. Their voices. It was inside the tower itself. At the top platform, I found Cal's body. Still alive. Barely. His chest rose and fell in shallow, rhythmic tremors. His mouth had bled through the stitches. I reached for him. His hand jerked, pointed past me, toward a hollow in the wall. The origin of the crying. I crawled toward it. Inside, the walls pulsed, flesh fused with wood. There were nests within nests, and in the center, a creature. Small, curled, translucent skin, milky eyes. Its limbs were wrong. Too many fingers. No sé. Just slits. It looked human and not. Like a fetus left to rot and evolve. And it opened its mouth. Daddy, I screamed. The sound echoed through the woods. I stumbled back, but the childlike thing lunged, not physically but inside my head. Suddenly, I was elsewhere. In the hospital again. The psych ward. Flashing lights. Smoke. Screaming. My screaming. A fire. A mirror breaking. Cal dragging me through the hall as alarms blared. Except, Cal wasn't real. He never was. He was part of my fracture mind. Born in that ward. The mimic didn't just consume flesh. It consumed trauma. Regret. It made vessels out of pain. And I had been its perfect incubator all along. I snapped back. Eyes open. Still in the nest. The baby was gone. The tower was collapsing. Bones cracking. The vines writhing. And Cal was gone. Vanished. No blood. No remains. Just a whisper in my ear. "Tak, you're it." And then I fell. I woke up at dawn. Outside the forest. Alone. Rescued, they said. Search parties found me wandering a trail, covered in dried blood and dirt, whispering about nests and voices. They said there was no tower. No aba. No Cal. They chalked it up to trauma and isolation. But I know the truth. Because sometimes when I look in the mirror, it smiles before I do. I was rescued from the forest, but I left something behind. Or maybe I brought something back. The voices haven't stopped. My reflection doesn't match my thoughts. And now, people are disappearing again. I survived the nest, but something else followed me out. They released me 2 weeks after my rescue. Doctor said I was lucky. Severe dehydration. Hypothermia. Hallucinations brought on by trauma and isolation. Classic signs of a psychotic break. But I knew they were wrong. I could still hear the mimic. In whispers behind fluorescent lights. In my dreams. In the low hum of my apartment's fridge. And in the mirrors. Especially in the mirrors. The first time it appeared again, I was brushing my teeth. Morning light filtered through the blinds. My apartment was normal, safe. But when I looked up, my reflection didn't move. It just stared, then smiled. A different smile. Wider. Too many teeth. The gums dark and raw. I dropped the toothbrush and backed away, heart pounding. The reflection didn't. It leaned closer and whispered, "You left the door open." I've tried to tell people what happened. Ava's family? They said she never existed. No online records. No missing persons report. Cal. There's no file. No employment record. No birth certificate. Even the demolition permit for the old ward, the one that started all of this, is gone. Scrubbed. Like the forest erased everything. Everyone. Except me. So I went back. I had to. I needed proof. I needed to see the tower again. The nest. Anything. The forest welcomed me like a long-lost child. No bits. No wind. Only silence. And the smell of wet moss and something deeper. Like blood soaked into stone. I retraced my steps, took the same trail, past the same grove where we first found the footprints. Except this time, there were no tracks. No bonis. No tower. Just a clearing. Empty. But the ground was soft. Freshly disturbed. I started digging with my hands, panic rising with every handful of dirt. And then I hit it. Steel. A camera. Ava's. The footage was still intact. I played it that night, alone, with every light on in my apartment. The recording showed our hike. Our laughter. Ava talking about urban legends and cryptids. Then the tower. Its jagged silhouette against the trees. But what made me drop the camera wasn't what we saw. It was what Ava said just before the static hit. The legends weren't about Bigfoot. That was a cover. This place, it's older. They called it the Hollow One. It feeds on stories, on belief. The more people fear it, the stronger it becomes. And then the audio warped. Faces shifted. Voices echoed. Ava screamed. And something crawled into frame. Not a monster. Not a beast. But me. Smiling. I don't sleep much anymore. When I do, I dream of vines wrapping around my bed. Of hollow bones whispering secrets in the walls. Of babies with no eyes calling me father. And lately, people around me have started to disappear. My neighbor across the hall